Thank you for having me on the show. I'm Gyal Lo. Um, I was born in Amdo, and I had nearly 30 years of service with the Tibetan education system inside Tibet. And at the same time, I was faculty member of the Tibetan Language and Cultural Department at the Northwestern University for Nationality in Lanzhou. I taught there almost a decade. And then I came to Canada to pursue my second MA and a PhD in the field of the so educational sociology. So in 2015, when I graduated, I returned to my former department, but they rejected me to continue my previous work. And then I went to Yunnan Normal University. I got a 5-year contract teaching their doctoral and MA students in Chinese. So unfortunately, based on my foreign study in West University for a long time, and then they think that my loyalty of them, CCP and the Chinese government. So they unfortunately terminated my contract in the middle of the 5 years. So that in order to escape the further serious dangers, and then I escaped to Canada from China on January 2nd, 2021. And then one day my brother called me, hey brother, can you come home to check your two granddaughter? What's happening? It's a very strange thing that's happening, but I don't know how to interpret it, how to analyze it. Can you come to home and then can you observe them? So one day I went, I think it's 2016, around the late evening, November. A Friday evening, I went to school gate to pick up those two grannies, and then when we got home, I carefully observed them. So both grannies did not hug their parents, did not do any emotional exchange with their parents and the grandparents. And then while eating the dinner, we chat with their parents and the grandparents, and then they both kids. Granny sat back a little further, and then they sat there almost like a stranger guest that they're just at home. That catches my serious attention. And also when they playing together, and then I heard they're purely speaking Mandarin, Chinese Mandarin. And then I thought, this is something serious. This is how they uprooted the young generation from the roots. Start with their parents. They emotionally detaching them. They're not engaging their mother tongue conversation. Their start became psychologically becoming a stranger at home. So I think this is not a unique case. Then as an educational sociologist, I thought that China implementing this policy across Tibet. So I spent 3 years summer, 2017, 18, 19. I visited almost, I think, I clearly remember 50 or 52 boarding preschool. Then also again, got the chance to have had a dialogue with those number of the principals, school principals, teachers, and community members and their parents. The conclusion quite similar as with my those two grannies. This is serious. This is, I think, this never happened before in the history. Even Cultural Revolution could not go this much down. You know, when we revisit our history, over the 10 years Cultural Revolution, they destroyed many things, destroyed the material cultural environment, but under the 10th Panchen Rinpoche and the Kongtang Rinpoche's leadership, we spent 10 years. We be able to revitalize the majority of the Tibetan society from the damage of the Cultural Revolution. But I think the result of this program will make the Tibet won't be able to revitalize the culture in the future. Those generations can't speak and can't practice their language and culture, and also they don't know their religion. And the more seriously, they completely cut off from the home sense of the cultural environment, the home culture. That means they totally cut off from the home village, from the home. I think then from the cultural sense and from the psychological sense, it's possible in the certain way of when you develop the mother tongue, the primary discourse with your mother tongue is possible. But it's very clear impossible to develop the secondary discourse with your mother tongue. That's why kids shift to the only speaking Mandarin. Because they're losing the ability of the mother tongue, using the mother tongue to describe what they think, what they see. They already shifted to their mindset to the Mandarin contact. They have a more Mandarin cultural contact, more text in their mind than their mother tongue, their home contact. So that's why they still try to speak Tibetan, but it's not there. When they speak in Mandarin, Chinese Mandarin, the school makes them much more confidence to communicating with the Chinese Mandarin. You know, clearly, parents has no choice whether they can send their kids to school or not. There's no any other alternative education system available there besides the boarding preschool first. Second, it's the Chinese authority system intimidating them, parents, to make no choice. They say, if you don't send your kids to the boarding preschool, then later your kids won't be able to enroll the grade 1. That means block entire education for their life. First. The second is they're going to block your information from the government system. That's going to stop you receive any benefits from government system. The third thing is more seriously, is saying, okay, if you against our language the school education policy, going to put you in jail, simply. Because this is boarding preschool is a part of a compulsory education. So no one can escape it. So in this sense, under this kind of a situation, parents have no choice. And also, parents have no choice, just letting the Chinese authority system violate the child's right of what to learn, what to teach, what kind of future they could desire for themselves. The parents uh, facing such a difficult economic difficulty because of the economic marginalization they're facing. China have been implementing their anti-poverty policy. They think, I wish they could have done this in the alleviated the Tibetan parents or family from the economic difficulty. That would be fine. But the way they're doing it's not on the surface, lip service. Only the lip service, just without providing long-term economic benefit or engagement. Just giving them daily life food or like oil. One bottle of the oil they can come to say deliver to you. It doesn't work there. It's not alleviating the Tibetan family from the poverty. I think in the contrary, they're putting more in the serious financial difficulty because they're not really ultimately pulling them out from the poverty situation. I don't think they're really doing the poverty alleviation, I think. We can argue them, but nowhere to argue. The system, authority system, the government system doesn't care about it. After the young kids graduate from university or college, they simply situate them, became a cheap labor, and then they systematically setting the programs between this province to province, and then transferring the large group amount of the young population to the Chinese city, became a cheap labor in the faculty. So that's the whole situation now. I can see clearly the Tibetan facing the dilemma of whether you're gonna accept assimilation or remain the poor life in the village. That's only the choice that's made in the situation there. I studied a little bit about the indigenous system, indigenous history and education, and also quite did some of the study and produced some of the paper already. I compared Tibetan education in New Zealand. I studied did a comparative study of the Tibetan people in China and the indigenous people in Canada. I did. Throughout my study, I realized that Canada even did the mistake, or Australia too. They apologized to people, indigenous people, and then they stopped many years, number of the decades ago, right? But this is the 21st century. China is implemented this right now. It's ongoing assimilation approach. They're implementing. So this is something that's serious. We learn and experience already. We clearly see, comprehensively understood this as a mistake. But the China continuing. That's the problem. We don't want to see anywhere around the world on this planet repeating that dark history again in this 21st century. The colonial ideology behind their program. On top of that, they're not seriously taking our kids' education same as they do with their kids. For example, they just simply sending the third year's undergraduate students to be the teacher in our school system, particularly boarding preschool. Those volunteer teachers, young kids, they never saw Tibetan. They don't know any single Tibetan words. They don't have a teaching experience. They just drop them over there and then let them accumulate their teaching experience. Once their teaching skill became mature, and then they graduate from their university, and then they send it to those experienced teacher to the Chinese city program. That's their situation. Our kids, such young age kids, for example, for age 4 to 6, they don't know what the consequence of the being in that kind of school for their future, right? But they know who architected, who designed this program, who implemented this program. They know. But all those architectures and the implementers and the teachers are not our people. They only do 3-day training. It's laughable. The child's education, particularly preschool education, it's quite a serious job. It's not simple like 3-day training can be a good teacher. Can you imagine that? They need a comprehensive understanding of the kids and a highly trained teacher to be a teacher for the preschool kids. None of them there. I can give you an example. At the beginning, in my hometown, those my two grandies experienced, because of the lack of the communication between kids and the teacher, the many kids pooped in the classroom in their pants. At the beginning, when they asking kids to be boarding, the kids can't take care of themselves. And then many kids got sick. And the villagers sent their representative to the township government, asking them, there's the argument actually, what to teach, how to teach, it's not in our hand. But our kids are being sick. So we have a responsibility to their health. So if you can find a way to keep our kids not sick in school, in the boarding school, then the head of the township government has no idea, and then he brought those village representatives from village to the school, and then they negotiate, saying, okay, what about we send a lady who has a good experience with taking care of the kids. That each family can take from a woman from each family. They can take a turn. This day send this lady, the other day she send the next family lady. But after the 3 or a few months, and then those Chinese teachers start complaining them. Well, you know what they say? Those ladies reducing our teaching in Mandarin because the kids speaking their mother tongue all the time with that lady. Then they kick that lady out from school. You know what's happening in the classroom? They never show. They never show to anybody. They never show in the inside the classroom and the content material on the document and the website. No one can see it. But I learned from those kids what they teach, effectively, their pedagogical development, it's very high level in the advanced. Those teachers brought Chinese cultural objects every day in news, and then they put on the table, ask kids to imagine, and then They ask them draw what they imagined. Later, they ask interpret those what they draw in Chinese. That's the completely wash out. Even the small part, primary level of the psychological foundation that they had with their parents and home, washed out now. That's why those two kids get home, feel like a guest or a stranger. That's the China is systematically implementing their ideology. The ideology is a combination of Chinese nationalism and the Communist Party's mission. You cannot change that without any power. We don't have power. We don't have that power, you know. You know, one example I can give you. The United Front Office from Chinese CCP system, they call in the parents every day to pull back those young monks from monastery. And then one villager criticized them. Why you are not taking care of after you pull back the young monk and put them in the school? There's no formal classroom, formal teaching there. You just care about how to pull back the young kids from monastery. You know what's happening? They just simply put them, young kids monk, into the giant room and then offer them computer and let them access the website, internet all the time. Then after 3 months or 6 months, no one want to be monk anymore. And then they warned that villager, saying, if you question that again, we'll put you in jail. You know, parents has under such a pressure. Can you imagine the government system, the office calling them every day until you pull back your young kids from the monastery? That's a policy. Simply, they say, okay, no child can be a monk under age 18. They see this is very clearly. If they send their kids in the monastery, they can educate them the way of the Tibetan. They have a strong Tibetan identity, the culture, and they can learn. Their first primary and the secondary discourse are built based on their mother tongue. When you send your kids to the state school system, they only have a primary discourse with their mother tongue, and then they highly develop their secondary discourse with their Chinese Mandarin. So it's going to simply abandon their mother tongue because it's became a useless, right? They lost their chance to learning family knowledge and village knowledge by keeping them in the 5 nights and a day in the school. They only allow them come back on the evening. Friday evening, needed to return them on the Sunday evening. Can you imagine how much knowledge, home knowledge and village knowledge that could kids to learn through the 2 nights and the 2 days? That's why kids doesn't want to stay in the home when they graduate from high school, because they think that they already became a stranger. So that means those generation already now became a fit neither Chinese society nor Tibetan society. This is their intentional idea. Tibetan, under China's control, we are almost has no capacity to resist them with China's colonial control. So in this case, international community together can increase the pressure on China to stop this kind of program. I think it is possible if we unitedly to increase the pressure on China. Yeah, please take action now together before it gets too late. The program the Chinese implementing now in Tibet, boarding preschool, it's clearly, because see it as an educational sociologist, I see that it's ultimately a cultural and racial genocidal program. I can give you a concrete example, like those two grandnieces. They became a stranger at home. This is a racial genocide, I think. And then they don't want to speak your language, even with their parents and grandparents. That's the cultural genocide. The simple of the both genocides already there. I saw them with my own eyes. I can't find any other words. This is not the cultural genocide.